It's all part of our Krusty Burger Olympic sweepstakes. Just scratch off the name of the Olympic event on your game card, and if America wins a gold medal, you win a free Krusty Burger.
And cut.
Blah! I almost swallowed some of the juice. I'll be tasting that for weeks.
Great spot, Casey.
Put a sock in it, Preppy. How much are these free burgers gonna cost me?
Not to worry, Mr. K. We've rigged the cards. They're all in events that communists never lose.
I like.
This just came over the wires, Big K.
Uh-huh. Soviet boycott. U.S. unopposed in most events. How does this affect our giveaway?
Let's see. You personally stand to lose $44 million.
And we keep things rolling here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I'm here with the one, the only, Paul Chivari. We hope you are enjoying your 4th of July weekend. Hopefully it is safe and sound. If you are not here in the United States, hopefully you're just enjoying your weekend as we are all getting ready as the summer, all the eyes of summer sports will be in Paris, France for this Olympic session, this cycle of Olympics. And Paulie, we have a bunch of stories we have to get to, a bunch of nuggets I want to get to. Some would say some gold nuggets, if you will. So first of all, Paulie, what do you know about dirty water?
They love it in Boston, according to that one song that they play after Red Sox games.
And according to, if you're certain beaches here in Chicago, there's a bunch of dirty water, but that is going to be the case in Paris, France. Now, Paulie, what is the name of the river? Is it the River Seine? How do they pronounce it? Seine?
Yeah.
So that apparently that water
is insane.
Is insane, full of bacteria. So before I get into some of these articles from Yahoo Sports, this is how I want to frame it, because if you look at the article titles, Seine water quality improves ahead of Paris Olympics new test shows. Water quality improving day to day, Paris authorities say. How bad is E. coli for you? So these are all articles that go back to back to back, and that is the case. So this comes to us from Yahoo Sports. Water pollution levels in Paris River Seine have improved, data showed on Thursday, 3 weeks before the Olympics, in which the French capital's landmark waterway is meant to be one of the swimming venues. So not just a thing for beauty, a landmark for people to take pictures, that is an actual event venue, something they're going to use for actual medals. So keep that in mind. Data published by the city and the regional authorities showed the concentrations. How do we say that, Paulie? Enterococcus?
No, I've never heard that word.
Okay, and E. coli.
Okay.
Bacteria. So both bacterias were below legal threshold 6 out of 9 days between June 24th and July 2nd. So essentially between those 6 out of 9 days, the levels in which that bacteria was found in the water was acceptable levels. But when you think about that, 6 out of 9 days, that means 3 days it wasn't. Quote, despite still a high flow rate, the quality of the Seine's water improved over the period under review, with water quality in compliance with the thresholds defined by the European directive thresholds on 6 days, Paris City Hall said in a statement along with the results. The levels depend on rainfall and water temperature, among other factors. With decent weather this week in Paris, the quality of the water is expected to remain good. And this is the first time the French capital has been working on cleaning up the Seine so people can swim in it again, as was the case during the 1900 Olympics. But a sewer problem last summer led to the cancellation of a pre-Olympics swimming event. And if you're wondering what events will be held there, it will be the triathlon, the marathon swimming legs of the Olympics, which run from July 26th to August 11th, which are scheduled to be held in the Seine River. Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo, who championed a campaign to clean up the once infamous dirty river in time for the Olympics last month, postponed her planned dip in the river, which she said then was likely to happen after the French snap elections, whose second round is due to take place on Sunday and after the annual July 14 Bastille Day celebrations. So that is what's going on in the river, and something that it could impact athletes all around. So Paulie, obviously this is going to be a story that continues to develop, and we're going to see politicians on that side of the pond talk about this, use this as their own political talking points. But just from where we're standing, is it interesting to you that a world-class city like Paris knew that these games were coming and they allowed this to get this far in without taking care of it, without thinking about the ramifications? What are your thoughts about this story in general?
Yeah, I guess because it reminds me of 2016. They were talking about that with Rio, the water quality in the bay there. And there was articles, months ahead of time that was stating as such. And, you never heard about the aftermath, but you did hear there was a couple of infections from sailors that as could have been as the result of the quality of the water in Rio. I had never heard about this until this week, but at the same time, it wasn't on my radar, but I didn't know. I didn't, like Rio, I didn't know leading up to it until I saw those articles that there was a problem with Zika virus, which ended up not happening, and then the water quality down there. So with Paris, I'm not sure about what the unforeseen things or foreseen things are. The only thing that was on my radar was the with me the UEFA European Cup final a few years ago where they were pepper spraying Liverpool fans and the egress and the entrance into the stadium had like questionable logistics. So hopefully all of that got solved in those last 2 years. But yeah, I mean, we're going to be watching, the whole world will be watching what that looks like. And now that we're hearing about the water quality in the river is bad, what's that going to look like? And you said it for the triathlon. Do you know, did it say anything about rowing or anything like that?
It just said the triathlon and the marathon.
So people are going to be swimming,
swimming
right in that, and like that's different than rowing or sailing over it. So yeah, it's something to keep an eye on. And it was interesting that it was saying the water quality is improving. And I want to say someone deemed it like safe enough, by these standards nowadays, but it was like just 3 days ago we were seeing reports saying that the quality was bad. So yeah, it's less than a month until the games start. I think we're only like 3 weeks away from these events. So we'll see, will July be a month full of rain, and will that affect it? Will that, what will the weather affect it? Like, like warming temperatures increase bacteria growth. There's a lot at play here with what that river, the Seine River, is going to look like come Olympic time.
And this is one of those interesting moments where I know for a lot of people, they hear this conversation and they obviously think about political parties because it's climate change. This is a great example of pollution and climate change and how it impacts not just people's talking points when they're in a podium, but real life stuff, everyday stuff. We should be seeing it here in the Midwest with all the tornadoes or all the flooding in the South or the crazy heat in the South and the West of this United States. But if you're ignoring all that and you love sports, you can't ignore it when something like this is happening. When you're going to the Middle East for big FIFA tournaments and they can't play because it's too damn hot. These are all things that matter. This is all real life stuff that impacts everyday people beyond just the Olympics or any type of huge sporting event. So I think this is interesting, Paul, that we're going to keep a story on it. And we want to know your thoughts as Paris gets ready for the Olympics. Will they get this clean? How did they not get ahead of this knowing they were going to invest so much to try to bid for the Olympics? A fun story, Paulie, really fast. Simone Biles, GOAT. She has some ties here to Chicago after being brainwashed, being in Green Bay for so many years, because her husband, Jonathan Owens, is now at Chicago Bears. And the Bears are allowing Jonathan to go and miss training camp to go support Simone Biles, who is going to be back at the Olympics, one of the greatest to ever do it. And I think that's a cool story. Any thoughts on how far we've come that we're allowing spouses and just how cool this is to have this story here in Chicago?
Yeah, it's almost like a version of like paternity leave or something like that, but like on a different level. But at the same time, doesn't this kind of feel like to you, how like producers kind of go in ahead of a production and kind of like find stories and specifically Hard Knocks, they have all those little like B-sides and plot lines and stuff. You're like, yeah, there's the main thing we're going to see this year with the Bears and Caleb Williams and how are they going to, transition all that. But, there's all those like little stories that you see, those old pocket stories from week to week. And I feel like that's going to be one right from the get-go. Like, the Bears will be... Like, I'm envisioning now who does the narration. Liev Schreiber being like, Bears are going to be without their cornerback, Jonathan Owens.
New free agent. As wife. Simone Biles. And then there's just going to be highlights of Simone just doing goated stuff.
But he has a good reason.
And dramatic music.
And then when he shows up in week 2 or week 3 of the production, greets his teammates. I don't know. It just feels like that's a Hard Knocks feeder story right there.
Which is perfect. Which, by the way,
which it should be too.
Which, by the way, so beyond just how awesome Simone Biles is and how cool this is that it's in Chicago, I think this Bears Hard Knocks that we're going to be covering week to week I think it's going to be a fun season because there's so much intrigue and so many stories just like this. Oh, random Olympic story now on training camp for the Chicago Bears. How this is so random for a Hard Knocks.
I guess a little on-air production meeting about the Hard Knocks thing, which was not what this segment was about. But, like in real time, we got to figure out like how much is too much for spoilers when we talk about this.
Good point. This is something, let us know. I mean, if you're listening to this, but I think the ratings are going to be crazy because this thing that's happening with the New York Giants with the offseason, and then a team like the Bears.
Oh, I loved the Miami one was great during the season last year.
So this is a great example of the crossroads of stardom. We saw it during the offseason, during the season with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and then you put somebody like Simone Biles, who is a GOAT too in what she does, and you have somebody who Jonathan Owens is a nice player, but to have that spotlight, I think this is awesome. Just the cross-pollination of all these different types of fandom, man. We get to see it front and center here in Chicago.
Well, yeah, I was saying, because isn't Dansby Swanson's wife
Mallory?
competing?
She's playing for the United States women's team. So
yeah, I mean that's awesome that like especially now that you have like power couples in sports and like the cross pollination, like you were saying, like Olympians and people that play the 4 major sports or sports that are professional in the United States.
His trainer has told me that he's taken anabolic steroids, Novocaine, NyQuil, Darvon, and some sort of fish paralyzer. Also, I believe he's had several cocktails within the last hour or so. All of this, of course, is perfectly legal at the All-Drug Olympics. In fact, it's encouraged.
Some of the only times right now everybody is dying for some SNL, Paulie, with everything that's going on in the political sphere, but you could always count on them from some good old-fashioned, old-school SNL, and obviously that's our guy, Troy McClure, who... one of the greatest segments.
Well, that was our guy Kevin Nealon that was talking, but in the clip I cut it out. It's Phil Hartman is the Soviet weightlifter, and he lifts.
Look it up, kids.
It's a famous scene where it's like he lifts and his arms come off, and he's like bleeding out the shoulder. Yeah.
So the reason we bring that up is this is a story that comes to us from Bloomberg. The Enhanced Games, a planned Olympic-style event that welcomes doping and is backed by billionaire Peter Thiel, is in talks to raise around $300 million. So check out the entire article in Bloomberg. The reason I wanted to bring it up, Paulie, that we were talking about, it's a funny story, it's a funny headline, but I also wanted to just bring it up for a second as we know that testing is going to be a huge story over these next few weeks, next few months. We've already seen everything that happened with Russia and that crazy documentary if you want to look into it. What I find funny about this is at least somebody wants to keep it kind of above the table. Like, it's a goofy, I get that it's a gimmick, but like at some point we have to get to that point that science is just so good. And what's the difference between PhD and just normal health? That we get to that. What do you think?
I've never liked it because I think trying to keep a standard is trying to keep everyone clean, but I do understand that there's a lot out there. There's just so many different types of supplements and things that are not even intended for performance enhancement, but accidentally have the side effects where as a result of taking this, it would see a increase in muscle volume or dexterity and speed, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I don't like it to one degree, but at the same time, if someone wants to do it, if there's going to be an all-drug Olympics, that could be interesting, but I don't encourage that. Yeah. I'm curious to see what would be, but there would always be the asterisk if, so-and-so broke the 100-meter dash, but they've been taking whatever, which is banned by the IOC. But, leave it to SNL though to be like The Simpsons in a way that they were clairvoyant and saw this coming. I think that's always been kind of joked about and talked about, especially MLB. But that was the late '80s. That was like late '80s, early '90s when that bit happened.
Well, don't forget Vince McMahon was huge in the news because the World Wrestling Federation went to court against the United States. The United States brought charges for steroids.
Yeah.
So by the time we got to the late '80s, early '90s, and then like you said, Major League Baseball, it was everywhere. And for SNL and The Simpsons to always leave it for comedic geniuses to kind of get an idea outside of it. I just want to spend 30 seconds saying this. I do think that I will never argue with people who say it should be all natural, it should be all above table, there should not be any gimmicks. I believe that these athletes, everything is just so scientific to the macro, to the micro, that if done with the sanction of the CBAs and with doctors and with health, I think this is fine for there to be human growth hormones and things like that. Where it gets a little different when you have people taking anabolic steroids and cream behind the doors, taking syringes and shooting themselves up and their teammates in stalls, and now everybody has enlarged hearts and things like that.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit different if you could give somebody a blood spin and their knees aren't deteriorating at 27.
But is that practice illegal though?
It was back when we were growing up. At this point now, it may not be.
It's common. You're saying when Kobe did it controversially back in the mid 2000s.
So as long as that evolves, that's where I'm at. The evolution of what health is and medical science moving forward, because that is something that just moves us forward on the regular day to day. When the super athletes get it, eventually we get it, and I think that's what's an interesting story. But Paulie, this has been an awesome time just getting ready, getting people set for the Olympics.
Oh, what I was going to say, like it tied into this. You'll bring it up.
So you send me this information, and it's timely. We're talking about everything that's going on, and the gimmick of this this PhD Olympics. This comes to us from CNN Sports. World Aquatics confirms U.S. government has opened criminal investigation into doping case involving Chinese swimmers. CNN Swimming International governing body says its executive director, Brent Nowicki, has been ordered to testify in a U.S. criminal investigation into a case involving 23 Chinese swimmers who failed doping tests in 2021, but were allowed to continue competing and won medals in the Tokyo Olympics. In a statement sent to CNN on Friday, World Aquatics said Nowicki was served with a subpoena and is, quote, working to schedule a meeting with the government, which in all likelihood will obviate the need for testimony before a grand jury. The Chinese swimmers tested positive for trimetazidine, a banned performance-enhancing substance, several months before the 2021 Tokyo Olympics, according to a report from the New York Times released in April in coordination with German public broadcaster ARD. So it's happening right now, and this is big money stuff. This is big player stuff. This is stuff that means a lot to a lot of people when it comes to betting, when it comes to government sanction, when it comes to government funding, and when it comes to a lot of money that a lot of these people are investing in these big games. So the fact that China is doing this does not surprise me at all. We saw what Russia's willing to do, and we saw what Saudi Arabia is willing to do.
Yeah, no, and the American, the patriotism in me is kind of like, be skeptical as you can about it, where it's like, yeah, if the Russians are doing it, maybe the Chinese are like kind of facilitating
more
this,
than likely
encouraging that, But it goes back to, I like to see it clean. The control is that you try and keep it clean because not everyone wants to be doping and doing this stuff. So, yeah, I just thought that was interesting that story just broke, just recently and leading up to the Olympics. I wonder how that's going to affect if there's any Chinese swimmers that are going to be pulled away because they were caught doping.
And we want to end on a fun one. All the crazy stuff that's happened. A century ago, at a small stadium just outside Paris, a college track and field star from Ohio named William DeHart Hubbard took a dramatic leap forward for himself and for all African Americans back home in a segregated United States of America. By defeating the best long jumpers in the world at the 1924 Paris Olympics, Hubbard became the first black athlete to win an individual gold medal at the Games. Hubbard's nephew, Kenneth Blackwell, the former Secretary of State of Ohio, told NBC News his uncle recognized that he was carrying the hopes and dreams of millions of black Americans on his muscular frame when he raced down a track toward a sandpit and leaped into history. Quote, he wrote his mother a letter that I now have framed, and the letter simply said that he was going across the ocean to become the first Negro to win an Olympic medal in track and field, to make her proud, but to also show that there are no boundaries that cannot be broken, said Blackwell, who was once mayor of Hubbard's hometown of Cincinnati. Paulie, we got a lot to talk about as the Olympics go on, but we were going to end on a great American on 4th of July weekend as you and I get hyped for the Paris Olympics. A beautiful story. Do your research, kids, on people that are the foundation of this great country when this time of year, these time of cycles of sports come around. Paulie, we'll be covering the Olympics all summer long, so I look forward to you and I cracking the mics and talking some Olympics, and I can't wait for each and every one of you guys to interact with us. Show us your nation pride. How many gold medals are you going to win? We want to know. We got a whole lot left here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm Mike Mercado. He's Paul Chivari. You're listening to us here on the Heartland Signal, WCPT 820 AM.
USA, USA, USA.